Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and we've been talking a lot for many years about Deutsche Bank, and they've had massive layoffs in recent years, tens of thousands, I should say, and there's new news that doesn't exactly involve Deutsche Bank, but the whole banking system in general, and as this article out of Zero Hedge says, Barclays to eliminate 100 senior investment bankers, and as the article goes into, as the real economy continues to decelerate and the Federal Reserve's not QE catapults growth stocks to a record highs, thousands of bankers are being fired every month. Bloomberg reports Barclays PLC is the latest big bank to lay off 100 senior staff at its investment bank unit. The job cuts are expected throughout Europe and the US and will be mostly managing directors and director-level staff. The restructuring was spurred by Barclays investment bank chief Tim Throsby, who warned staff that he'd reduce bonuses. He also said pay for top performers would increase while pay cuts will be seen for non-performers. With layoffs nearing, CEO Jess Staley is attempting to recapture the lost market share of its investment bank segment after years of dwindling profitability. Banks across the world, the ones who should be benefiting from the $1 trillion global central banks printed in the last 4 months and 80 rate cuts in the previous 12 months, have unveiled the biggest round of job cuts in 4 years as they reduce costs to weather the global trade recession. In 2019, 50 major banks announced plans to cut at least 77,800 jobs, the most since 91,500 in 2015. And you can see this chart here for the year 2019. And going into 2020, this is going to be huge news as we continue here. It says Morgan Stanley, one of the most bearish banks on the global economy, fired 2% of its workforce last month due to an uncertain global economic outlook, CNBC reported. And we can't forget that Morgan Stanley has, as they mentioned, been very, very bearish from the perspective of they've been warning their clients to, protect themselves and that there's something huge coming at them in the near future. As it continues here, it says banks in Europe have been crushed by the ECB's catastrophic NIRP policy, negative interest rate policy, and face the added burden of negative interest rates that is crushing profitability and led to the most job losses last year. And you can see these this pie chart here. European banks have disclosed a higher number of targeted job cuts, and you could see Europe is a huge chunk of it. Continuing on, it says even as stocks continue to new highs on not QE, the banking industry is increasing cost-cutting measures as the real economy continues to stagnate, squeezing bank profitability. This is big news out of Barclays. Now, I do want to mention that, as we've been reporting for a while, these banks, they benefit from a lot of the interest rate policies we're seeing in a lot of ways, but you cannot solve a problem of centralization with more centralization. The fact of the matter is that these banks have been bankrupt for years. The recession in 2008 never ended, and it's just been papered over, and what we're seeing today is the results of years and years of manipulation, as we saw in 2008 as well. These banks, according to their own balance sheets, are bankrupt. I mean, look at the cash to deposit ratio, as John Sneisen here at WHAM had reported on previously, regarding how these banks are carrying, in many cases, multiple big banks are carrying less than 1% of deposits in cash. And that tells you all you really need to know about how incredibly indebted and how incredibly, unliquid these banks really are. Again, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. If your money's just in a bank all the time, you are basically enslaved to the banking system. It's not good. People have become way too dependent on banks and expect them to manage their money properly. The fact is, in most cases, these banks are very predatory. That's how they make money. They don't make money from, saving their clients a bunch of money. I mean, the veneer of 1% or 2% or even 5%, that's one thing. But overall, generally speaking, they want people to be indebted to them. I mean, the financialization has gone crazy. These aren't the old savings and loans banks anymore. People are getting insanely indebted with credit cards. Household debt is skyrocketing. And, then there's all the other forms of debt that come from printing of currency, quantitative easing, all that kind of stuff. But of course, as we've been reporting, you could see in Europe, in Britain, in Australia, in Canada, and the United States, the move towards negative interest rates. And this is part of a global issue. It's not one particular place or another, though the world reserve currency is going to be heavily affected, obviously, as economies around the world start to create a domino effect. As we mentioned earlier, Deutsche Bank is a great example. They've laid off tens of thousands of workers. I should mention this article here out of Yahoo Finance. It says tens of thousands of bank jobs axed in 2019 and more pain to come. And you could see an employee at Deutsche Bank carrying his box of stuff out of a London office, apparently. And I mean, this should be concerning to everybody because we are on the edge of a severe financial crisis. And I think even some of the top Keynesian experts, quote unquote experts, have been warning about that because there's an everything bubble worldwide and there's a currency bubble. The derivatives bubble is in the multi-quadrillion dollar levels. Remember when we first reported on Deutsche Bank in, I think, January, February 2016. At that time, their derivative exposure was $75 trillion. That's the global GDP. Now it's down to around $45 trillion. Like, that's a big upgrade. They've been doing restructuring plans. They had to redo their living will test. They've been laying off tons of employees. They've been downgraded by the S&P. I mean, there's one catastrophe after another for Deutsche Bank, which is just seeing all-time lows constantly, all the time. And this is kind of a great example of the way the market is going. The market is going in the direction of these new alternatives, decentralized alternatives, not just gold and silver, which is really important but heavily manipulated by banks today, like any other market really, but cryptocurrency as well. I mean, cryptocurrencies have been shocked lately, mostly on Iran news, and I believe that a lot of fear has been propping up the crypto market, but that tells you one thing and one thing only, that people are looking at it as a safe haven one way or another because governments don't own it necessarily, though governments are trying to. Nonetheless, we could see the cryptocurrency markets have improved dramatically lately, the most I've seen in a very long time, especially things like Bitcoin Satoshi Vision have skyrocketed, and it's pretty astonishing. And that's why it's interesting, all these banks are also trying to get involved in the cryptocurrency market because, I mean, even Deutsche Bank talked about buying cryptocurrency. JP Morgan is trying to get people to buy gold and stuff like that, telling their own clients to get out of the US dollar. I mean, these are predatory banks, but they need to cover their butts because they know they can't be a Ben Bernanke circa 2007 saying all is great, the economy is better than ever, everything is perfect. Now, again, this isn't an issue with Trump. It's not an issue. It wasn't an issue with Obama. It's an issue with the printing of currency, fractional reserve lending, and the debt usury interest on the debt that people are paying in their taxes as inflation goes up and people's the value of the currency goes down. And people can't afford to feed themselves and their family and end up on the streets. It's a horrible, horrible situation. It's a scam. It's fraud. It's evil, really. And that's what we're up against. And it's interesting because at the same time, you have this article out of Barron's that says, bank stocks are good bets in 2020. Here are some to pick and ones to avoid. And look, they might be right. I mean, technically speaking, like last year was ridiculous for the stock market. The year before was terrible. But I mean, 2019, the year was amazing for the stock market. But let's keep in mind that most of that is on hot air. It's just like the dot-com bubble, the crypto bubble, all these bubbles. You have 95% crap and 5% good things, fundamentally good things to invest in. The 5% doesn't hold up the rest of the market because all the bad things that people are speculating on eventually will come crashing down, and then comes a collision course for all the good investments as well. And that is going to be met at some point eventually. It's amazing it hasn't already. But with talk of recession in the air so much, people are like, the markets are doing great. The dollar, well, it's not doing great. But, if you look at John Williams shadow stats. You see the real inflation rate over 11%, etc. But people think the dollar is doing great. Job numbers, they think, are doing great, even though it's hidden in the labor force participation rate and it's not doing great. And people are starting to think, despite all this stuff, it doesn't look too good down the line. You have to hit a peak at some point, and eventually what goes up must come down. And I think we're seeing that realization coming, yet we see all these people also desperately trying to get people to be continuously bullish. And we see that with Barron's, like that article that I'm just showing on the screen here, bank stocks are good bets in 2020. Here are some to pick and ones to avoid. And you can't take it at face value, guys. You have to be skeptical about this kind of stuff, because the people that are writing these articles are usually dependent on people, bowing down and buying things that they can't afford and buying stocks that they shouldn't buy because they're hyped up and propped up. And like, for example, FANG stocks. Why do FANG stocks do good at all? I mean, what have these companies really done other than fail Libra coin, censoring the people on their platforms and making their platforms worse and not really innovating in any amazing ways, other than maybe Amazon to an extent? What are they doing? I mean, eventually these guys, the problem with a lot of these companies is they have to keep building or they crash. Like they can never stop building. The second they stop building, everything collapses over on top of them. And so that's a pretty doomy, gloomy kind of situation going forward. And exactly another reason why even the things that seem to be the most prosperous are it's just like a face value. It's hot air. It's blowing smoke basically at this point. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. They always have. They always will. Going back to 1024 AD in China, this time won't be any different, as I've said a million times here. And I don't think a lot of people are still taking that seriously. When we see the Keynesian economists warning that there might be a problem in the near future and that there might be a recession in 2020. Even though there already is, 97% of CFOs that are polled or surveyed say that they believe there's a recession coming in 2020, as we reported on recently here at WAM. I mean, at what point do people go, oh, yeah, well, okay, it's time to start backing yourself up? And we see some of that. I mean, again, banks getting into crypto, banks getting into gold to such an extent. But we also see private ownership of gold skyrocketing to about 50% as it's been over the last year. Private ownership to public ownership. So that's actually a really good sign that people are actually buying up different assets to protect themselves. And again, none of this is investment advice, but nonetheless, I think that the key to this is that people know there's something wrong. They're not quite sure what it is, but with all these layoffs, with all of these restructuring plans from all these different banks and the lack of, I guess, confidence that we're seeing in a lot of these major institutions, people are getting a little bit concerned. Again, skyrocketing stock market. It can't last forever. So people are backing themselves up and hopefully not into a corner with more bank investments and stuff. They're backing themselves up with gold, silver, crypto. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that as technology and, wealth insurance take the key as far as prevalence going forward for the average family in the United States, Canada, and elsewhere. As negative interest rates come in and people just go, this is ridiculous. Why am I paying taxes to pay off debt that is making everything more expensive? I mean, it's just, the notion in general is just ridiculous. And I think more people are realizing that. The amount of people that I talk to about the dollar, for example, I'm just seeing a lot of people react to it like, yeah, that's based on nothing. I remember 10 years ago, no one knew what the Federal Reserve was, and now a lot of people do. Still, most people don't, but a lot of people do. And I see that movement growing faster than ever before. So that we can at least be happy about. Again, these attempts by these institutional investors to get people continuously investing reminds me of JP Morgan back during the 1929 depression, after the crash, the initial crash, buying up, causing stocks to go up. All these people got more money in and took out loans and then lost all that on top of everything else they lost. It's predatory, it's terrible, and that's how these banks act. That's how they operate, and that's why people should break free from that system. They're complicit with governments in order to bankrupt the populace, create homelessness, and create divide as well. And the medias are part of that as well. And that's why people should support independent media if they can, because we're the ones that are speaking out against this insanity that is victimizing millions and millions of people. So make sure to check those links below and write in the comments below, short Barclays. Right, short Barclays, and we'll know that you watch to the end. It helps our algorithm and keeps everything going. Make sure to press like on this video, press to be notified, bookmark our page so that you can actually see our videos when they come out, because we're insanely shadow banned exactly as we approach this massive crisis. It makes sense that they are trying to shadow ban us and stop us from being seen. And why wouldn't they? That's their prerogative, is to hide this information from the populace and push things like CNN and Fox News in everyone's faces and make them regurgitate talking points until they eventually not really believe it, but it's just Simon Says after a while. It's brainwashing. They Live was a documentary, by the way. So yeah, write short Barclays in the comments and check those links. We got a Teespring store, End the Fed, F the Fed t-shirts, stuff like that. Statism is cancer, Nobody for President 2020, creepy old guy 2020 with Joe Biden sucking on a finger, you know, stuff like that. We got lots of stuff on our site. Taxation is theft, all that kind of stuff. So make sure to check that out in the Teespring store, linked below. Find GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, pledge to us, help us stay alive as a media as we're getting cracked down on. We've lost 85% now of our audience since January of last year. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, came in and said that she was making sure that controversial content, quote unquote, only got about, got 70% less viewership in the last year than previously. She's shadow banning us and openly bragging about it on shows like 60 Minutes, and we've lost about 95% of our monetization since last year at this time. So we need you guys. We need you guys to help out any way you can. It's the only thing that's going to keep us up and running, posting videos every single day here on YouTube. And of course, join us on float.app, the alternative. That's flote.app. And it's replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted messaging to keep everything private. You can have monetization on videos you post there, which is a huge incentive for creators. And you can send super chats in crypto to live streams. There's no algorithm telling you what you can or cannot do. So we're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham, W-A-M, on Float, flote.app, and also find us at Acapulco coming up right away in Acapulco, Mexico, the biggest conference in the world for free-minded people. You can use promo code WHAM, W-A-M, to save money on your tickets, and we benefit and everyone benefits and all is well. So we hope to see you there. Anyway, there's so much more coming up on the horizon. So don't be a debt slave. Don't be a slave in general. Be responsible, a free individual. Responsibility and freedom go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. They're synonymous. And obviously food, water, shelter, self-defense, you're not gathering things with the toughest guy on the block, and wealth insurance. It goes without saying, guys. These are crazy times and they call for crazy measures, and it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. So anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us today, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at Wham, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a Patreon. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale. So make sure to find us on float.app. That's flote.app. At Josh Sigurdson, as well as at WAM, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are 2 major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.